Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be discussing and answering your questions for the first episode of Fan Friday. That's right, I thought it'd be a good idea to answer your questions and give my analysis and predictions. Now, I've been using this kind of layout on my other social media platforms, but I thought it'd be a good idea just to bridge everything all in one place. That's why I'm using YouTube as the sole platform moving forward. All right, so bear with me before we get started. I'll be toggling, like I said, through all my social media platforms. It would be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, DMs. You get the picture. All right, so let's get started. I believe user 160 on Twitter had a question. Yes, he said, of all the quarterbacks that might be available or attainable for the Niners next year, who would you go after and why? That's a great question, user 160. At this point, rumor has it that the Falcons might be moving Matt Ryan at the end of the year. All of us know that Dan Quinn, or for those who don't know, Dan Quinn, the head coach of the Falcons, was fired. Raheem Mostert stepped in as an interim coach. They also wiped their hand clean of GM Thomas Dimitroff. So when you take those two pieces out of the picture, you really don't know what's going to happen with the Atlanta Falcons because everything's up in the air. We don't know who the next GM is. We don't know what his vision is, his 5-year outlook is. However, what we do know is numbers, right? Matt Ryan's due a lot of money, and I don't see him being moved, whoever the next GM is, at this point because he holds $9 million cap hit that the Falcons would endure by releasing him or trading him than simply keeping him on their roster. Same goes with Julio Jones. So I don't see Julio Jones or Matt Ryan being moved next year. All right, an NFL team would have to take a huge hit, and I don't see that happening. All right. Secondly, it comes down to Kirk Cousins, right? That's the rumor. I think it's safe to say that Kirk Cousins will always be tied to Kyle Shanahan because of their days back in Washington, and anytime Kyle Shanahan's quarterbacks don't do well, Kirk Cousins is going to sneak into the conversation. However, he is also due a lot of money, and if the Vikings do not retain him, they're going to spend $10 million in cap hit too. So when you look at it, $9 million for Matt Ryan, $10 million cap hit for the Minnesota Vikings, I just don't see them moving either one of those players. It just doesn't make financial sense for Rick Spielman and whoever the GM is for the Atlanta Falcons. So those guys are staying put. Second question from user 1. So that's the end of that one. Second question is, can Jimmy G get better at the deep pass, or is it what it is? Great question, user 1. At this point, I think it is what it is. You live and die with Jimmy Garoppolo and the mental mistakes that he makes. Yeah, he needs to learn to live to play another down, but how many times have we seen that? It's been dating back to last year. We thought he would learn it leading up to the Super Bowl. Obviously, it didn't happen. Brashad Breeland got an interception in that game, and then it carried over into this season where he's throwing passes in double, triple coverage, has some problems disguising his passes, I guess you would say, because he telegraphs his passes. He's like a 1 or 2 read quarterback. He doesn't really scan the other side of the football field. So these things, yeah, they can be coached up, but I think at this point we're kind of realizing what Jimmy Garoppolo is. He is not going to single-handedly win you games, but he is good enough to get you wins and get you to a Super Bowl berth. All right. Next question is from Alejandro. Scrolling back through all these social media platforms is nuts, but it's fun, I guess. Not really, but I do it for you guys. Alejandro had a pass rush question. Okay, here we go. What did you say, Alejandro? Okay, he asked, do you think we need to trade for someone or just deal with the next guy up? Another great question. We see all these other teams making moves. Everson Griffin was traded from the Cowboys. We see the Seattle Seahawks go ahead and make a move for Carlos Dunlap with the Cincinnati Bengals. And the trade deadline is coming up. So are there any moves being made in the 49ers future? And people tend to forget they just made one for Jordan Willis. Yeah, it wasn't a splash play or a splash player that we were all hoping for, but you got to think of it from John Lynch's standpoint and the salary cap that he's working with and the financial side of that situation. Jordan Willis brings that pass rush presence. Now, is he going to be a Carlos Dunlap type of player with that type of impact? Absolutely not. But let's face it, the 49ers pass rush has been non-existent for all year. I would say outside of Kerry Hyder Jr., it's been dead. It's been a dead issue. Like nothing's being done there. And so they realize that they need to get some kind of fountain of youth, bring in Jordan Willis on the cheap, and see what he can do. Maybe spark a plug on that defense side of the football. All right, so we'll just have to see how that plays out, and hopefully Jordan Willis pans out. All right, David asks, what happened to the pass rush this year? Watch your Buckner pod was spot on. Well, thank you, David. Yeah, so for those who are just following me, my very first podcast episode was making sense of the DeForest Buckner trade. And I said right when they traded DeForest Buckner, it was a huge mistake. Now, people were leaving comments and bashing me on social media saying, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to be better because Javon Kinlaw has better potential. And this is before they even drafted Javon Kinlaw, by the way. And they're saying, if we get Javon Kinlaw, it's better. Okay, cool story, bro. How's that working out? It's not. You lose DeForest Buckner, you lose your team's best player. I don't care what you say. He's the team's 3 technique. He takes on the majority of the double teams, and it opens up things outside and makes everything else better on the first, second, and third levels. So you cannot tell me that losing DeForest Buckner was not going to be a significant hit, and you cannot tell me that Javon Kinlaw will replicate that type of production, or that type of production can be replicated by a committee approach. It just wasn't going to happen, and I saw it, and people who were realists kind of understood my take on that, and we're seeing it. What's happening now in Indianapolis? Oh, they have one of the best defense in the NFL. Oh, who they bring over? Oh, DeForest Buckner. Okay, and for those of you who were saying, oh, well, it's better to get something for nothing because DeForest Buckner would have been gone at the end of the year. No. Cut that, Rogue. Cut that. Let me tell you what they should have done. And I said it in my podcast. I said they should have released Richard Sherman, okay? Or traded him. Traded or released, doesn't matter. You wipe your hands clean of $12 million. You use that $12 million to give Buckner a front-loaded contract, okay? How's that looking back 6 months out from now when I said it 6 months ago? Pretty damn good. Then, Buckner, who is already playing on the 5th-year option, buys you another year of time to work out the financials for the following years ahead. Boom! Makes sense. But instead, they decided to give Eric Armstead $85 million. Not saying Eric Armstead is worth $85 million or not, but what I said that they should have done is they should have gave Eric Armstead the franchise tag and gave him the non-exclusive franchise tag and tagged him because Eric Armstead had one hell of a year last year. He had 10 sacks. He had a career year, right? But it's only 1 year body of work. So if I was a GM, John Lynch, I would want to see a second year of production in order to warrant that $85 million contract, even though it's backloaded. Now, here's my thinking on that. By franchising Eric Armstead, you're giving him 2 things, right? You're acknowledging for his great play, Pro Bowl type play, right? Which he's earned, so it's front loaded. But then also gives you leverage in negotiating a longer term deal. Whereas if you do it the other way around, you're tying yourself to Eric Armstead for the next 2 to 3 years, banking on the same production that he had in that career season the year prior. So if you look back, and like I said, I cover all 32 NFL teams, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, what they do with Bud Dupree, who came out in the same exact draft as Eric Armstead back in 2015. He balled out last year, and what did they do? They gave him the non-exclusive franchise tag, tagged him. He's playing on the franchise tag again, or franchise tag this year, and what is he doing? He's balling out. So that's 2 years of production of work that you're seeing from Bud Dupree, and now the Steelers are saying, okay, well, it's not a 1 year wonder. He's actually getting it done. Let's extend this guy long term. Now, how's that going to play out? Will it play out? Time will tell, because Steelers are kind of like in the same situation as the Niners. Don't have much cap room to work with, but Bud Dupree is deserving of that long-term deal. All right, so that's what I thought that Niners should have done, but hey, what's done is done, and hopefully everything works out. I do believe the 49ers are heading in the right direction, but at this point, it's the pass rush needs to come alive. And whether it's Armstead, whether it's Kerry Hyder Jr., it doesn't matter who that player is. Somebody just needs to step up in Nick Bosa's absence. All right. Jason asks on Facebook, question. The offensive line needs help. Anyone worth targeting? Okay. So I'm guessing, Jason, you mean by free agency. I don't think you mean through trade, because I don't see any team worthy of trading a valuable quality offensive lineman in mid-season. Although it does happen, we saw with Larry Tunsil. But uh, as far as trades being made, or the free agency is concerned, excuse me, let's talk about free agency. At the end of the year, I was looking through all the free agents that would be available at this point, and the one that I can see to become an unrestricted scheduled free agent is Joe Thuney from the New England Patriots. For those who don't know who Joe Thuney is, he's not a household name, but he is a 2019 second team All-American, All-Pro, and he actually was kicked into center this year because David Andrews is out and went to IR. So he's a guard who can kick into center. I think he adds the athletic ability and the skill set that Kyle Shanahan needs. As you remember in Atlanta, when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, he had one of the best offensive centers in the game in Alex Mack over the years. So if he can bring in a guy like Joe Thuney, that would just do wonders to that offensive line from the get-go. People are saying, well, we have Weston Richburg. Yeah, well, I would cut Weston Richburg. I mean, I think at this point, when you haven't played, I don't know how many games now, at this point, you're damaged goods. And prove me wrong, but if the money that you'd be saving from cutting Weston Richburg, you can easily give to someone else. And I believe Joe Thuney is that player. I mean, the best availability is durability. And if you're not on the field, then you're basically not doing anything at all. So that's why I feel not a hit on Weston Richburg. I just think just the way the NFL is. NFL stands for not for long. So if you're not getting it done on the field, someone else will. All right. So Joe Thuney is my target for the 49ers this offseason. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out if they don't draft one in the draft, early in the draft, I should say. All right. Next question is from Chris. What's your analysis on wide receiver Chase Claypool? I have him in my fantasy. All right. Well, Chase Claypool is balling out of control. For those who don't know who Chase Claypool is, you probably do now. He came second round pick out of Notre Dame. What the Steelers really liked about him was his competitive drive, especially on special teams. And at the Senior Bowl, he was playing lights out, gave it his all in every single phase of the game. So that's what they liked about Chase Claypool from a football character standpoint and competitiveness standpoint. When you talk to GMs, they will talk to you about players checking all the boxes, and one of the boxes is competitive drive or competitiveness, or does this guy like to compete? He does. So kudos to Chase Claypool. He is a gadget player, much like Brandon Ayuk. I really love Chase Claypool. Steve Young even gave him the highest praise, in my opinion. He compared him to George Kittle. Yes, Steve Young compared wide receiver Chase Claypool to George Kittle. Coming out of the draft, people were wondering, because of Chase Claypool's size, height, weight, speed, HWS, that he would be able to convert as a tight end. And for Steve Young to make that comparison, saying that Chase Claypool has a similar impact to George Kittle from the wide receiver position, that just says it all. That means he's a baller. All right? He can run, he can catch, he can block. Front runner for Rookie of the Year. All right, next question is from James. If Sherman doesn't come back like you predict, who's worth getting in return? That's another good question. If Sherman doesn't come back, which I don't think he's going to come back, he's just going to be owed way too much money, and another team will pay him that money to get a veteran presence, and he still has tread on his tires even though they're wearing down. He's still a pretty solid player. My thinking is, you want to keep players intact. So my best bet would be to re-sign Jason Verrett first and foremost, re-sign Emmanuel Mosley, and then work your way up from there. But if you're looking at free agency, two players I will point out. Okay, I just mentioned earlier Bashaud Breeland for the Kansas City Chiefs, who picked off Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl, right? And then Logan Ryan from the New York Giants. Those are two players who can play cover 3 in Robert Saleh's scheme. So keep an eye out for those guys in free agency at the end of the year. All right, and Christina asked a question. How do the 49ers win up in Seattle? Well, aside from the obvious, you have to win the turnover battle. Yeah, the 49ers have to establish the run, and then they have to take pressure off of Jimmy G by giving him time to throw the football. All right, use a heavy dose of Brandon Ayuk. That's what I would do, because the Seahawks use what? A cover 3 scheme. How do you beat a cover 3? Speed outs, bubble screens, jet sweeps, fly sweeps, move them horizontally, and then you can take your shots downfield if you have to. All right, so Brandon Ayuk should get a lot of targets this year and this game. And I'm really looking forward to see what it can do. I have him starting in my fantasy lineup, and I took Tyler Lockett out. So please, again, it's on my podcast, dude. I even said it on my pod. Brandon Ayuk, if you're tuning in, man, please ball out, man. I think you're gonna have one hell of a game. Just prove me right. Just prove me right, man. All right. Well, that's it for today. I hope you liked this episode and the first episode of Fan Friday. If you like what I had to offer, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in the lower right hand corner as I keep all things East. And that's about it. Nothing much to say about other than that. Oh, there is one more question. Just came in. I thought I heard a notification in here. I was like, wait, what's going on? Okay. Last question here is from Jackson. Jackson asks, who's better, Fred Warner or Bobby Wagner? I said it last year. Bobby Wagner is the standard, but Fred Warner is the up and coming. I thought Fred Warner was snubbed as a first team All Pro last year. I thought it should have went to him the year that he had. He should be a first team All Pro this year. He should be the highest paid middle linebacker in the NFL. Bobby Wagner gets paid $18 million annually on average. Fred Warner gets paid less than $1 million on average. So Fred Warner is due for a contract year next year, and the 49ers re-sign him to a long-term deal. He should accept nothing less than a front-loaded contract because of his play. You're not banking on his future success. You know what we're getting with Fred Warner. We're getting the heart and soul of the defense, of a top 5 defense. All right. Well, that's it for today. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel in the lower right-hand corner as I keep all things Beast. Thank you for tuning in. BEASTwriter out. Peace.